One dynasty's lie exposed, but the vault goes deeper. From the palaces of Ried and the House of Saud, we now travel to the royal court of Stockholm, where another set of suppressed documents waited 2 centuries for the light. This is document number 9, the Swedish Bernadotte deception. The royal palace in Stockholm stands as a monument to Swedish power and continuity, its Baroque facades suggesting centuries of unbroken dynastic tradition. The monarchs who have occupied this palace since 1818 bear the name Bernadotte, a dynasty that Swedish schoolchildren learn to revere as the architects of their nation's modern prosperity and neutrality. What those schoolchildren are not taught, and what the Swedish state has labored for 2 centuries to conceal, is that the Bernadotte dynasty rests on a foundation of fabricated genealogy, forged documents, and the systematic erasure of a truth so embarrassing that its exposure threatened to delegitimize the very concept of hereditary monarchy. The classified adoption records that proved this deception survived in archives scattered across Europe, their contents suppressed by governments that understood the explosive implications of revealing that Sweden's royal family descended not from ancient nobility, but from a French peasant soldier whose true origins contradicted everything the monarchy claimed to represent. The story begins in 1810, when Sweden faced a succession crisis that threatened to tear the kingdom apart. King Charles XIII was elderly and childless, and the crown prince who had been adopted to succeed him had died unexpectedly, leaving no clear heir. The Swedish nobility, exhausted by decades of war and territorial loss, sought a new crown prince who could stabilize the realm and perhaps recover the territories lost to Napoleon's France and Alexander's Russia. Their unlikely choice was Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte, a French marshal who had risen through the ranks of Napoleon's army to become one of the most successful military commanders in Europe. Bernadotte was elected crown prince by the Swedish Riksdag in August 1810 and arrived in his new kingdom to begin a dynasty that continues to the present day. The official biography of Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte presented to the Swedish people was carefully crafted to emphasize his military genius while obscuring his humble origins. He was described as the son of a prosperous lawyer from the town of Pau in southwestern France, a member of the provincial bourgeoisie whose talents had elevated him to the highest ranks of revolutionary and Napoleonic society. This biography was not entirely false, but it concealed crucial facts that the Swedish authorities judged incompatible with royal dignity. The classified records that documented these facts were gathered by French, Swedish, and other European intelligence services during and after the Napoleonic era, their contents known to a small circle of officials who understood the importance of maintaining the fiction. The truth about Bernadotte's origins was considerably less distinguished than the official narrative suggested. His father, Jean Bernadotte, was not a prosperous lawyer, but a minor legal functionary who supplemented his meager income by working as a weaver and occasional farm laborer. The family lived in genteel poverty in a modest house in Pau, struggling to maintain appearances while lacking the resources to provide their children with the education appropriate to their pretensions. Jean-Baptiste himself had received minimal schooling before enlisting in the army at age 17. His literacy acquired through self-education during his military career rather than through formal instruction. More problematic still were the questions surrounding Jean-Baptiste's biological parentage. The classified records contained depositions and correspondence suggesting that he was not the natural son of Jean Bernadotte at all, but rather the illegitimate offspring of a liaison between his mother Jean and a man whose identity remained disputed. Some documents pointed to a local nobleman who had maintained the Bernadotte household as a cover for his relationship with Jean. Others suggested an even more scandalous origin, linking Jean-Baptiste to a wandering soldier or tradesman who had passed through Pau around the time of his conception. The biological father, whoever he was, had apparently contributed nothing to the boy's upbringing, leaving Jean Bernadotte to raise a child who may not have been his own. These questions about paternity were not merely historical curiosities, but fundamental challenges to the legitimacy of the Swedish throne. European monarchies rested on the principle of hereditary succession, the transmission of sovereignty through bloodlines that connected living rulers to their ancestors. If the founder of the Bernadotte dynasty was himself of uncertain parentage, then the bloodline he transmitted was equally uncertain, and the claims of his descendants to rule Sweden rested on nothing more substantial than the original political bargain that had brought Jean-Baptiste to Stockholm. The classified records documented this uncertainty with devastating precision, including genetic and genealogical evidence that later generations of investigators had assembled. The suppression of these records began immediately upon Bernadotte's arrival in Sweden. The new crown prince, who took the name Charles John upon his adoption into the Swedish royal family, understood that his position depended on the acceptance of a fabricated identity. He employed agents to locate and destroy documents in France that might expose his true origins, paying substantial bribes to officials who controlled the relevant archives. He commissioned genealogists to construct an elaborate family tree that traced his ancestry to minor nobility and prosperous merchants. A tree that was pure fiction, but that served to deflect inquiries about his actual background. The French government, initially hostile to a former revolutionary general who had defected to rule a foreign kingdom, eventually found reasons to cooperate in the suppression. Napoleon, who had known Bernadotte since their days as rival generals, possessed detailed knowledge of his origins that could have been deployed to embarrass the Swedish crown. But Napoleon's own position was precarious, and he calculated that maintaining leverage over Bernadotte was more valuable than exposing him. The classified files that documented Bernadotte's true origins were gathered by Napoleon's secret police and held as potential blackmail material, a threat that influenced Swedish foreign policy throughout the remaining years of the Napoleonic Wars. After Napoleon's fall, the files passed through various hands before ending up in the archives of the restored Bourbon monarchy. Louis XVIII and his successors had little interest in the internal affairs of Sweden, but recognized the value of maintaining good relations with a fellow European monarchy. The Bernadotte files were sealed and stored with other sensitive diplomatic materials, their contents known to senior French officials, but never publicly disclosed. The Swedish government, aware that the files existed, maintained a posture of anxious vigilance, monitoring French archival policy and intervening when necessary to ensure that the materials remained inaccessible. The files also contained evidence of irregularities in the adoption process that had made Bernadotte heir to the Swedish throne. The Swedish constitution required that the crown prince be of noble birth, a requirement that Bernadotte manifestly did not meet regardless of which version of his parentage one accepted. The Riksdag had addressed this problem by ennobling Bernadotte before his adoption, a legal fiction that satisfied the letter of the law while violating its spirit. The classified records included correspondence among Swedish officials acknowledging the irregularity and discussing strategies for defending it against potential legal challenges. More seriously, the files documented payments and inducements that had influenced the election of Bernadotte as crown prince. The Swedish succession had supposedly been decided by free deliberation of the Riksdag, but the reality was considerably messier. French agents had distributed substantial bribes to key Swedish nobles, and Bernadotte himself had made promises of territorial concessions and commercial advantages that he later failed to deliver. These transactions were not unusual by the standards of early 19th century diplomacy, but their documentation would have undermined the narrative of legitimate selection that the Swedish monarchy preferred to promote. Charles John ruled Sweden successfully for 34 years, establishing the foundations of the neutral, prosperous kingdom that would develop through the 19th and 20th centuries. He never returned to France after becoming crown prince, and he worked assiduously to transform himself from a French revolutionary into a Swedish patriarch. His successors continued this project, each generation becoming more authentically Swedish while the family's French origins faded into historical memory. The classified files that documented those origins remained sealed, their explosive potential recognized by officials who understood that the monarchy's legitimacy depended on maintaining the fiction of noble descent. The files surfaced periodically in contexts that threatened to expose their contents. During the revolutions of 1848, when monarchies across Europe trembled before democratic uprisings, Republican activists in Sweden circulated rumors about the Bernadotte origins that drew on leaked information from the classified archives. The Swedish government responded with a combination of censorship and counter-propaganda, suppressing the most damaging claims while promoting sanitized versions of the family history that emphasized military glory and constitutional propriety. The crisis passed, but officials recognized that the files remained a threat that could re-emerge whenever political circumstances changed. The unification of Germany under Prussian leadership created new complications. Prussia's intelligence services were among the most effective in Europe, and they had inherited materials from various German states that touched on the Bernadotte succession. Otto von Bismarck, the architect of German unification, was known to use compromising information as a tool of diplomacy, and Swedish officials worried that the Bernadotte files might be deployed to influence Swedish policy on matters of interest to Berlin. The Swedish government undertook diplomatic initiatives to secure the return or destruction of German-held documents, with mixed success that left the threat unresolved. The 20th century brought new technologies of investigation and new contexts for the suppressed materials. Genealogical research became increasingly sophisticated, with professional organizations and academic institutions developing methodologies that could trace family histories with unprecedented precision. Researchers who approached the Bernadotte genealogy found themselves blocked by archival restrictions and official non-cooperation, their requests for access denied without explanation. The pattern of obstruction was itself evidence that something was being hidden, and speculation about the contents of the classified files became a minor genre of Swedish historical writing. The discovery of DNA analysis as a tool for establishing biological relationships created both opportunities and dangers for the Swedish monarchy. On one hand, genetic testing could potentially resolve the questions about Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte's paternity that the classified files had documented. On the other hand, such testing would require access to remains and cooperation from family members that might not be forthcoming. The Swedish royal family has consistently declined to participate in genetic studies that might address genealogical questions, a refusal that critics have interpreted as tacit acknowledgement that the results might be embarrassing. The files themselves have become objects of scholarly and popular fascination, their contents inferred from fragments and leaks, even as the core materials remain inaccessible. French archives have released some documents from the Napoleonic period that touch on Bernadotte's origins, though the most sensitive materials appear to have been transferred or destroyed. German archives have proven more accessible, yielding correspondence and intelligence reports that corroborate the existence of the classified files without providing their full contents. Swedish archives remain the most restricted, with access policies that treat the Bernadotte genealogy as a matter of continuing national security. The implications of the Bernadotte deception extend beyond Sweden to the broader question of monarchical legitimacy in the modern world. If the Swedish royal family's claims to noble descent are fraudulent, then the principle of hereditary monarchy that they embody is equally fraudulent, a political arrangement dressed up in the costume of biological necessity. The classified files demonstrate that the founders of the dynasty understood this perfectly well, that they knowingly constructed a false identity to legitimate a political bargain that had nothing to do with bloodlines or divine right. The suppression of this understanding has allowed the Swedish monarchy to survive into an era when most European thrones have been abolished or reduced to purely ceremonial functions. The current Swedish king, Carl XVI Gustaf, is the seventh monarch of the Bernadotte dynasty. His reign spanning over 50 years of social transformation that has made Sweden one of the most progressive societies in the world. The contradiction between Sweden's democratic values and its hereditary monarchy is managed through constitutional arrangements that limit royal power while preserving royal symbolism. The classified files that document the dynasty's fraudulent origins remain sealed, their contents still judged too dangerous to release, despite the monarchy's diminished political significance. The Bernadotte deception illustrates a broader truth about the construction of royal identity in the modern era. All dynasties rest on founding moments that involved some combination of force, fraud, and fabrication. Their claims to legitimacy manufactured through processes that subsequent generations prefer to forget. The Bernadottes are unusual only in the extent to which the manufacturing process was documented and the documentation preserved. Other royal houses have been more successful in destroying the evidence of their origins, allowing myths of ancient lineage to calcify into accepted fact. The Swedish archives preserve receipts for a transaction that other monarchies have had the good fortune to lose. The files also document the international dimensions of monarchical legitimacy, the networks of mutual support that connected European royal houses in defense of shared interests. The suppression of the Bernadotte files was not a purely Swedish affair, but a collaborative enterprise involving French, German, Russian, and British officials who understood that exposing one monarchy's fraudulent foundations might encourage similar investigations of others. The crowned heads of Europe formed a kind of cartel, protecting each other's secrets because they recognized that all their positions rested on similar fictions. This solidarity of suppression helps explain why the files remained sealed even as the political contexts that originally motivated their classification fundamentally changed. The Swedish Bernadotte deception remains one of Europe's best documented royal frauds, its outlines visible even through the layers of suppression that continue to obscure its details. The peasant soldier from Pau who became king of Sweden built a dynasty that has endured for over 2 centuries, his descendants occupying a throne whose legitimacy depends on forgetting how it was acquired. The classified adoption records that prove this deception exist in archives that researchers cannot access, their contents inferred from fragments but never confirmed in full. Until those files are opened, the Bernadotte dynasty will continue to rule Sweden under a fiction that its founders created and that its heirs have maintained, a deception so successful that it has become indistinguishable from truth for all practical purposes.